Welcome to Trinidad and Tobago to our News 4 report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited and the Ministry of Communications. I'm Nicola Barito. Let's take a look at the headlines. Approximately 8,719 more housing units will be delivered to citizens over the next 2 years. Sorrel will now play a new role in the postal industry. And Trinidad and Tobago loses an Olympic pioneer. Thank you for joining us. As government distributed 200 keys to families in Cypress Hills, San Fernando, came an announcement that approximately 8,719 more housing units will be delivered over the next 2 years to citizens. The announcement was made by the Honorable, or Dr. that should be, the Honorable Rudal Munilal, Minister of Housing.
The Honorable Dr. Rudal Munilal, Minister of Housing, said the distribution of houses by the government was not a favour to citizens but instead the state's responsibility. He said government would stand by its plans and policies.
We have consistently worked to improve the efficiency and transparency of the HDC's housing allocation system and to ensure that each applicant has a fair chance through random selection. Today's key handing over ceremony for 200 recipients is one example of how this government is keeping its promise to deliver to you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, to ensure that law-abiding citizens are presented with the opportunity to live a better life while contributing to our social and economic development.
According to Minister Munilal, construction of the 8,719 housing units to be delivered to citizens within the next 2 years will actually wrap up next year.
Today, I'm proud to announce that in Cypress Hills Union Hall, San Fernando, construction has started and commenced on 740 units. We expect all 740 units to be finished in early 2014, and we are here today to celebrate the completion of housing units at this site.
The Honorable Kamla Persad Bissessa, Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, said when she turned the sod in February of 2011 for the Cypress Hills Housing Development Project, she envisioned herself returning with a level of pride. She said she was happy to see families advancing.
We are also delighted in the way we have structured our housing policies to deliver the best benefits to you, our citizens. The structures are important. The location is important. But in my respectful view, what is most important to us is combining the structures, the communities, and the new families together. This is how houses become homes. This is how locations become communities. And this is where the future you have been praying and planning and hoping for has arrived.
The Prime Minister also cautioned the new homeowners to take responsibility of their community.
The opportunity you have is that you all will be the makers of the future of your community. You will decide if it is kept clean, if it is kept safe, and most of all, if it becomes a place where families want to live and raise their children. Every decision you make, every concern you ignore, every tree you plant, everything you do will decide the future of your community and of your families. And it is for you to do the right thing. As each and every citizen of our country takes his and her responsibility seriously, you can do so confident that your government also takes its responsibility seriously.
Felicia Wilson, Mon News 4.
Meanwhile, the Prime Minister says the state would stretch its limits to stop the brutal and monstrous attacks on children. Mrs. Persad Bissessa made the statement at the key distribution ceremony at Cypress Hills Union Hall, San Fernando, some hours after she named a 15-member Child Protection Task Force to be chaired by former Independent Senator Diana Mahabir Wyatt.
The task force will hold their first meeting on Friday of this week. The purpose of the Child Protection Task Force shall be to assemble a team of proven experts in the area of child care and protection from education, national security, health and medical, legal, non-governmental and state sectors to carry out an in-depth analysis of the factors causing and increasing risks of crimes against children and to make proposals on how legislation, state agencies, NGOs and all stakeholders, including parents, can better protect children. The objectives of this task force shall be, inter alia, but not exclusively, with respect to the following. 1. To commence and complete a comprehensive review of all provisions, regulations, legislation, and public sector processes focused on the care, health, and protection of children. 2. To provide recommendations on the issues which influence and create risk situations for children, and how the state, through policy intervention and partnerships with NGOs, CBOs, and faith-based organizations, can roll back these risks. 3. To provide recommendations on how the Children's Authority of Trinidad and Tobago can become fully empowered to carry out its mandate, including factors of budget allocations, staffing, approvals for organization, structure, positions, and decision-making, reporting, and accountability lines. 4. To provide recommendations on how the present child protection legislation can be improved and, where necessary, activated through proclamation.
The task force will also, among others, recommend how emergency responses can be widened, accelerated, and structured to immediately respond to the needs of children at risk. The Honorable Prime Minister said it was easy to point fingers and cast blame in the deaths of 3 children over the last 3 weeks, but her government would not play games with the safety of the nation's children. She said her government was placing more attention on families and communities.
1-year-old Jacob Monroe found dead in a cesspit at the back of his home. 6-year-old Kiana tortured to death, sexually assaulted. And today I'm reading where a 3-year-old young Jabari Hernandez beaten to death. 3 children murdered. On Sunday, I met with the mother and other relatives of little Kiana. To even try to understand the anguish of the family tests the best of human limits. It is a tragedy that no one ever really prepares for, and it is unthinkable. These brutal and monstrous attacks on children must not be allowed to continue. And if that means we must stretch the limits of the state and find ways to come closer to families, then it is something we must consider.
Mrs. Prasad Bisesa then told the families their home was their sanctuary.
That your home, we say, is your castle, but the home is the haven and the sanctuary for you and the children of the family. And therefore you must always be on watch in your own homes. It is all well and good to blame the government, this government or the previous government. It is all well and good to blame the police or the support services, but the first duty of responsibility and care must begin with the family members in the home, must begin in your own home. And from your home into your community, from your community into the towns, and from the towns into the cities, and from the cities into the entire nation that we call home in Trinidad and Tobago.
The Prime Minister will get the recommendations of the task force in 6 weeks. She says there will also be a small core team as an implementation and action team. Felicia Wilson-Mon, News 4.
News 4 continues after the break. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. When an emergency occurs, the need to communicate is immediate. Now, this was the focus of the hosting of the National Crisis Communications Framework ITG workshop. Communications personnel from various ministries, including natural disaster first responders, met to discuss the way forward in handling such situations.
In times of national crisis, communicating the right message can assist in mitigating further damages. The effectiveness of sharing correct information also is seen in the type of responses received from the public when put to the test during natural disasters and national emergencies. However, establishing this type of communication framework first among the relevant stakeholders is required. This was the focus of the workshop hosted by the Government Information Services Limited. The forum served as an avenue to formulate a plan that in turn will serve as a regulatory guideline for effective and efficient disaster management among the relevant stakeholders in such times. Communications Minister Gerald Hadid says when planning communication strategies in such instances, one must take into consideration the potential outcome from sending out messages.
The first is to speak the truth and not encourage gossip, rumor, and speculation. If you don't provide people with the truth and they start to speculate, all your plans will fall apart. Public opinion research shows that when the official sources don't tell what they want to hear, they will go to whoever will give it to them. The second is to have a clear, defined chain of command. So there are not too many messages going out from too many people at the same time. More everyone in the chain must have the same information and agree on what must be disseminated.
During the crisis management process, it is important to ensure that the messages remain consistent and are not repetitive, but useful to the various publics being communicated to. The minister warned of keeping these in practice at all times and refreshing strategies to keep them relevant during times of emergency.
What I don't want you to forget or lose sight of are three things. The first is the need for redundancy or spare capacity. The Philippines is an example of the need to have backups of your backup systems in place so that if one fails, two fails, you have the capacity to manage seamlessly and continuously the rescue efforts. The communication of the entire situation. More than that, you must have an ongoing maintenance program. One of the problems in the Caribbean, not just in Trinidad, is the lack of concern we have for maintenance.
Stakeholders involved in responding in times of disaster were invited to the forum and included members of the Red Cross, the Office of Disaster Preparedness or DPM, Ministry of the People and Social Development. Key to ensuring accurate information is circulated will also impact the assistance offered from international and neighboring organizations. Disaster Management Coordinator from the Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society, Stephen Kishore, illustrated how critical this can be during disasters.
If wrong information went out at 10,000 dead, the Red Cross will be marketing to get, if there's a gap, let's say body bags for 10,000, and then 3 days after you tell me it's now 3,000, right? I would have just purchased 7,000 extra body bags, and that would be a waste of money, and I may not be able to get any more for that crisis. All right, so you can see how important information is. All right, so it's what you actually communicate. Are you actually communicating facts or just information in the meantime while you actually get the facts?
It's expected that by formulating this framework, all first responders will be interconnected with each other to ensure effective responses and timely assistance is provided to affected persons in times of disaster. Kimberly Calawan, News 4.
In other news, sorrel. It's most commonly used in Trinidad and Tobago as a drink, but it will now play a new role in the postal industry. This comes as the Ministry of Food Production collaborates with TT Post for an innovative idea.
TT Post has partnered with the Ministry of Food Production to launch the first seed stamp in the Caribbean. The stamp will feature the sorrel plant and has been launched as part of the commemorations for World Food Day 2013. Minister of Food Production, Senator the Honorable Devon Maharaj, commends TT Post for its role in the commemoration of the event and the honoring of what is seen almost as a national plant, especially at Christmas.
The stamp features sorrel and it commemorates World Food Day 2013 theme, which is entitled Sustainable Food System for Food Security and Nutrition, which was celebrated on the 13th of October. We delayed the launch of the stamp, not because of any other reason than sorrel is most identified with Christmas in Trinidad, and now is the time that fresh sorrel is around. So no better time could have been selected than the month of December. So this is not by accident, this is by real calculation here. I must commend TT Post for recognizing the importance of World Food Day, but also for their initiative to recognize the World Food Day by this very innovative manner.
The stamp collection comprises 6 stamps, a souvenir sheet and a clock depicting the full life of the sorrel plant. Minister Maharaj believes that the plant is essential not only to the spirit of the nation during the Christmas season, but also vital to the nation's economy.
This seed stamp being launched really captures the essence of sustainability in a way never before done in the Caribbean. Sorrel is a very versatile plant, and the name is known throughout the world by a variety of names, with each country having its own unique use of the plant through various parts of the plant, be it through beverages like in Trinidad and Tobago, or jams and jellies and medicinal purposes in other parts. In Trinidad and Tobago last year, almost 10,000 kilograms of sorrel was sold at the Macoya wholesale market alone. And I'm certain that wherever in the world you mail a package with a stamp, the recipient of that package will be able to easily identify the sorrel plant and the seed attached to the stamp and be able to make good use of it.
Its name may be disputed, but although it's called Carcade in the Middle East, Rosella in Australia, or known throughout France and Africa as Bissap, it's undisputable that Trinidad and Tobago has the distinction of being the first country to honor sorrel, an internationally recognizable plant, on a national stamp. Gregory McBurney, News 4.
Sport is up right after the break. Stay with us. Trinidad and Tobago lost an Olympic pioneer on Wednesday with the passing of McDonald Bailey. The former sprinter died peacefully with his family at his side just 4 days away from his 93rd birthday. Wayne Cunningham has more on the career of the Helsinki Games bronze medalist.
McKinley and Remigino are beside each other in lanes 2 and 3 from the inside.
One of the nation's outstanding athletes, Emmanuel McDonald Bailey, died on Wednesday at the age of 92. Bailey won an Olympic bronze medal at the Helsinki Olympics in 1952. In 1946, he created history by winning both the 100 and 220 yards dash at the British Open AAA Championships, and thereafter, with the exception of 1948, amassing 15 AAA national titles. He's the only Trinidad and Tobago athlete to appear in the Guinness Book of World Records from 1955 to 1998 for holding the greatest number of national athletic titles by any athlete. Emmanuel McDonald Bailey is also the only Trinidadian sprinter to hold a world record in the 100 meters, 10.2 seconds, which was established in Belgrade, Yugoslavia in 1951 and remained until 1956. He held the British all-comers record for the 100 yards, 9.6 seconds, as well as the European 100 meters, 10.2 seconds, between 1946 to 1953. Emmanuel McDonald Bailey was awarded the Chukonia Gold Medal in 1977 in recognition of his contribution to sport. He was an associate member of the Institute of Journalists, London, and has worked for the BBC, the Commonwealth Games in Edinburgh, and the Olympic Games in Rome, 1960. He also worked as a journalist with columns in the Trinidad Express and the Catholic News. Bailey also wrote the book, If It's Speed You're After, and the booklet, Building Blocks Before Starting Blocks, a training manual that also recognizes his colleagues in Trinidad and Tobago sport. Emmanuel McDonald Bailey, Olympic bronze medalist, 1952. Wayne Cunningham, News 4 Sports.
And we here at News 4 and by extension GISL do extend our condolences to the family of McDonald Bailey. News 4 continues after this. Stay with us. In an effort to keep the culture alive, Lopino La Pastora Village Council hosted its La Fiesta de Lopino on December 1st at the Lopino Recreation Ground and Basketball Court. The celebrations consisted of traditional parang, traditional food, Spanish Mass at 9:30 a.m., a parade, and steel band music.
The staging of the event in Lopino is all about keeping the traditions alive. And apart from gearing up for the infectious parang, the villagers busy themselves preparing indigenous cuisines like pastels, ham and turkey, roast pork, and an array of meats. The decision to hold this year's fiesta in Lopino was taken by the members of the La Pastora Village Council in collaboration with Minister Douglas, the MP for Lopino Bonnet West, who offered to host a major parang event. Speaking with News 4, the minister says that government has a plan that he believes will improve and preserve local festivals and traditions. Minister Douglas says that the government is seeking to have communities bid to become the home of festivals and traditions such as Parang, Ram Leela and other such cultural expressions.
What we try to do is to support the national organizations. So it will be the National Parang Association, the National Steel Band, National Theatre, and these organizations themselves have to find ways to use the income or the subventions from the state to find creative ways to develop. But I don't think it's possible for the state at this point in time. I mean, it's probably possible, but right now to invest in every one of our creative festival. I mean, that is something that I would really like to see happen. At every one of our festival, receive a significant investment where it can be developed to a place where it's comparison to any international festival.
Parang, the distinctive blend of Venezuelan music and Trinidadian rhythms, is a staple for Trini Christmas. Lopino, historical site, is a major stomping ground for Parang celebrations. So it was not surprising when thousands flocked to Lopino to witness La Fiesta de Lopino. One seasoned Parang servant who came all the way from Brasso Tabakit gave us an exclusive interview into the rise and fall of traditional Parang.
Parang on the whole supposed to sing certain songs that enter home. And with the certain songs, you must be able to enter, the people must be able to understand and welcome you within their home. Right? And if you cannot do that, well then you're not supposed to be into this thing because it's a sacred thing. To enter home, you must sing to enter, which meaning you're asking the people to allow you to come inside, and with God's grace and God's willing, that you enter in peace and leave in peace.
And outside, the kids from the Los Alumnos de Lopino Parang group got ready for their big performance. The authentic Parang music is played using instruments like cuatro, maracas, box bass, a guitar drum, and other light percussion such as the clack-clack and tok-tok. It is a sacred, often upbeat music which promotes joyous dancing. The fiesta also had a wide variety of activities to choose from. There was even a pan orchestra to entertain the masses. The show took place at the Lopino Recreation Grounds and took the form of Free Parang Kulafet, which, judging from the huge turnout, was a resounding success. Parang bands performed on the night before several hundreds of people. Joseph Lopez, News 4.
Well, that's how we wrap up this edition of our News 4 report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited and the Ministry of Communications. I'm Nicola Barito. Thank you for joining us.